You're listening to the Therapist to Millions podcast, where we get under the skin and into the brains of the world's leading therapists with Dr. Susan Spicer and myself, Damien Mark Smith, as we delve into the world of all kinds of effective therapies with fascinating and challenging cases, plus marketing tips and what's really working in mental health right now. Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Therapist to Millions weekly podcast. And today on the show, we have an international theme. We're coming to you from the Netherlands and Michigan and the United Kingdom as we welcome Federico Sarink, who is a family and couples therapist based in both the Netherlands, and he does his teaching in Spain, who uses EMDR and provocative therapy. We're going to be hearing a lot about that today to help with trauma, challenging his clients to get out of their comfort zone and go straight to the heart of the matter. His book entitled Provocative Therapy is available at Amazon, and we will be sharing the links to that in the show notes. So for now, Federico, welcome to the Therapist to Millions podcast.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm much obliged to being invited by the two of you.
Absolutely, our pleasure. And the whole idea is to get therapists like you to a larger audience. So tell us a little bit about your therapy, provocative therapy, where it comes from, and your story to how you got there.
Yeah, sure. Well, the provocative therapy was founded by Frank Farrelly in the 60s and the 70s of last century. And I came across the provocative style by a book in Dutch written by my two Dutch professors. And the first page was already mind-blowing in the sense that I thought, wow, so actually you can say everything you want to your clients and it can be effective as well. And I was always taught that you need to be very careful in everything you expressed, especially when transference and countertransference are in place. Then you need to be very careful, and you need to go in supervision, and then maybe you will do an intervention. But in a provocative style, as they explained, everything works. As long as it stems from the combination of good contact, lots of humor, and challenge. So I started to do the training myself, and I loved it. Started to work with clients myself, and after the first scary moments, not playing this role of the empathetic listening counselor, but one using humor, exaggeration, and challenge, I saw how it worked with my clients, and it was great, actually. Yeah.
Wow, that is so fascinating. I imagine, too, that being able to say what you're feeling and to not have those types of boundaries would improve the therapeutic relationship, because you're being really authentic in that manner.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing, that if you talk about a therapeutic alliance, which is the most important common factor in psychotherapy, then a lot of our colleagues are very hesitating and very careful in not damaging the therapeutic alliance, but actually being authentic. So say what you think.
Right.
And being harsh, well, sometimes it feels for the outsider, oh, that's harsh, but actually it's what clients themselves are thinking a lot of times as well. And they feel that you're authentic and that you have real contact with them.
Right. You're saying what you're thinking. Right. So I imagine challenging them would be an important part of this.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Fascinating. I love this approach.
There's an article written by Christophe Panicelli. It's a Belgian psychiatrist, also doing a lot of research to the role of humor, like me, in the field of psychotherapy. And he's also been trained by Frank Farrelly. And he written about the idea of the auto-double bind, which means that if you're a therapist, you automatically step into a double bind in which you need to be empathetic, because you need to understand the viewpoints, the emotions of the client. So you need to be good at that side of the work. But if you're only empathetic, no change will come, because the client needs to change perspective. There needs to be a change somehow. So for change to come, you need to challenge some way. whether it's provocative or whether you use EMDR or whether you use the cognitive behavioral technique, whatever. But you need to challenge the thinking and the acting of the client, because otherwise nothing will be in movement. So then you have to break this empathetic role of yourself. So you're in two opposite sides. And he says, well, humor, and especially the humor we use in provocative therapy, can function to overcome this double role you have as a therapist.
Mhm. Fascinating. I imagine that works better for some types of personality disorders or some types of clients than others. I'm thinking narcissists right off the top of my head, in the manner in which, like, being really authentic and using humor, but also being really challenging can be super powerful in treating someone,
Sure.
say, with NPD. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have there been any specific life experiences that you've had that have shaped your work as a therapist?
Well, yeah, I think for everyone, it counts. I think that if you go back to your youth, there stems a lot of dynamics from there, you know. And in my case, my father died at an early age, so my brother, my sister were there with one mother taking care of us all. And I took the role upon me as an adolescent to be there for my mother, you know, to listen to her, etc. So I think I then learned that being there for somebody to listen is being appreciated, and it's worthwhile to do so. But on the other hand, as a 15-year-old kid, I couldn't solve the emotional conflicts of my mother.
Right.
So being there was one thing, but the feeling of a solution, a change, you know, the being powerless in that sense, that's also something that formed me. And getting in touch with the provocative side after my clinical training at the university, then I got acquainted with the provocative style, and that was actually the resolution of my frustration as a kid. That as a therapist, I don't need to be responsible for a change, but I can, by using humor and challenge, by not accepting the responsibility for a change, I can do different stuff in a therapeutic relationship, which makes the client move, and the client needs to assume responsibility, him or herself, from the beginning. So I think that's been a powerful influence in why I choose to be a psychologist and then a provocative one.
Absolutely.
Now, you've mentioned humor a few times here. How do you do that? Because it's quite hard, I think, for people to be funny, especially when you're dealing with, you know, issues like trauma, for instance. How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's something I have to think about what Albert Ellis said, the founder of the cognitive therapy, that a lot of times, a lot of serious stuff happen in our lives. But problems arise when people take their situation and themselves too serious. So yes, there are serious stuff. Trauma is serious. The pass away of your parent is serious. But people who take themselves a little bit more lightly, they are more flexible, so they find their way in life, and they not always need support from a therapist. But people going to therapy, they tend to be too serious, too rigid, and what you can see is they lost the ability to play around in their lives, to laugh, to see the humor side, not of the trauma, but of the way they're handling their lives.
Nice.
So what I think is important, that we as a therapist, we inject humor again in the system of the client, so that they feel the humor again, and then adapt a humorous perspective on themselves as well. So what I don't do is laugh or provoke on a trauma. So if somebody has been abused as a 16-year-old, I won't go there and look for a provocative or humoristic perspective. But if you then challenge, let's say, this girl who now is age 22 and has a boyfriend and wants to be intimate with his boyfriend. But being intimate also causes anxiety because of the trauma. Then I will use the provocation and exaggeration to which a client could laugh. For example, I would defend the side of the client that says, "Ooh, this is dangerous territory." And I would say, yes, listen to your body. If your body says this is danger, it is. You already experienced it a couple of years ago. And who can tell if you can trust your boyfriend? Did you have sex till now? No. Did you kiss? Yes. Sex? No. Okay. So if you enter into the sex, hormones will take over and you never know what kind of beast will come out of your boyfriend. No, and they probably will say, well, no, I already know him for a couple of months and he's the sweetest guy ever. Yeah, you know that one of Jekyll and Hyde and, you know, people changing. So because of the exaggeration, sometimes the humor is there. They're like, well, no, you're now exaggerating and I can trust him. So that is all already playful, more humoristic perspective on the situation in which the client then will correct me. But by correcting me, she is correcting herself as well.
I love that. You're leading them to their own insight through using the humor and the exaggeration.
Exactly. And that's for me the basic point, that every client comes in with an internal conflict, ambivalence between I want to change, but also another side in a client that says, ooh, it's hard. Or if someone is depressed, is I don't have the energy to do so. Or I already failed a couple of times in my life. Or my parents tell me, well, maybe you shouldn't, or whatever. But it's an internalized side of the client that is making it hard for the client to change. And what I do is that I will become good friends of this side of the client self that says, don't change. So as a devil's advocate, I will be on the side of the client, but always on the side that will say, rather not. So expressing everything I do is actually mirroring the client, but the hesitating side. So if the client then protests against me, he or she is protesting against this side that's impeding a change in himself.
Nice. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's use some non-identifying and hypotheticals to give examples of like a really amazing success story, something that didn't go so well, and maybe like a really unusual or fascinating one.
Yeah. Okay. So what happens a lot of time, and just last month there was this male student feeling depressed and couldn't put himself to study. So provocatively, I advised him against a change. So stay in bed and do nothing. And look, the world is a negative place. Look what happens with Putin and climate change. And if you express yourself on the internet, everybody will tumble around you, and you will have haters and lovers. And you better stay in bed. So already during the session, he was protesting against this idea because, well, he agreed on my arguments, but he was like, no, I really want to pick up my study again. So in the weeks after the session, he already started to study again. And although he still felt this blanket of depression surrounding him, he just started to study and finds it enjoying. So that's what you see a lot of times, that or during the session or after the session, the client begins protesting against my good advice not to change.
I love that.
I love it. Yeah. And as far as like growing your practice, like what has been your most successful marketing technique?
Well, writing a book, I think.
Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because listen, I'm doing a lot of stuff making podcasts myself. This book, I've translated it into Dutch and into English. some other stuff, but especially the book. It's a way to reach people, but also if I meet colleagues, you can give your business card or you can give your book. Well, book has more impact, and it makes that other people invite you for a podcast, for a lecture, whatever. So that's been very helpful. Yeah.
I love that. So just tell us a little bit about the book and the podcast, because obviously they're both out there now. So
Yeah.
the book is obviously it's not. Is it an introduction as the way you see provocative therapy, or is it kind of following on from Frank? Was it Frank Fairley? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, both actually, because I wrote it in Spanish because I wanted to enter the Spanish market, and there was nothing in the Spanish language on provocative therapy. So no website, no book, nothing. So what I did is that I took the 7 provocative assumptions written by my 2 Dutch professors, and actually there were 8, but I made 7 out of it, and I changed 1. So it is talking about what is the theoretical fundament of the provocative style till now, and then with my experience, I changed a little bit. I tweaked the assumptions, and what I did is I begin every chapter with a case description, very elaborately. Then I explain what is the assumption and some of the provocative techniques. So that way, it's something that it's nice to read if you just want to have a peek behind the curtain of what happens in the sessions. And for the people who want to learn or already did a course, it's a good way of reflecting on how am I doing and how did Federico do it. So it's helpful in their process of growing into the provocative style. And the provocative podcast, it's the same idea. So there are 7 of them talking about basic assumptions, and then in either language, I'm talking with colleagues from all over the world about their expertise, and from a provocative perspective and the perspective of humor in therapy, we talk about abuse, about depression, personality disorder, or how to provoke if you're a sex therapist or whatever. So all kinds of topics.
Fantastic. We're going to put the links to that in the show notes. And I should just say a bit of self-promotion here, because Dr. Susan's book and my book, The Therapist to Millions book, is came out on Amazon this week. So if you're on YouTube, you can actually see that's available now. And
congratulations!
Yeah, thank you so much. So yes, we've got the same with podcast and a book.
Exactly.
And that really is a great way to reach people, and they get a better flavor of your type of therapy when they can hear you talk about it in a podcast and when they can read what you wrote in a book. I love that, giving that the book as your calling card. I think that's powerful.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So on the subject of books, what's been the best therapy book you've ever read and why? And also, what is your favorite non-therapy book?
Well, it's a hard question especially because of my PhD now, I'm reading a lot of articles and books. So sometimes it changes, but of course, one of my favorite is Provocative Therapy by Frank Fairley, especially because it's telling about the beginning of his provocative style and where it came from. But also interesting, in the same year, 1974, a book written by Watzlawick, Weeklands and Fish, authors of the Palo Alto group. They wrote a book about change. And so the paradoxical intention, which has been described by Viktor Frankl at first, is also in their book, and it has very much similarities to the ideas of Frank Fairley. So that's very interesting. And nowadays, I'm very enthusiastic about a book written by Harvey Minders. And it's called Laughter and Liberation. It's very funny to read, but also very interesting to see how humor works, but also in therapy, how in one side we need to be serious, but then we love to escape from our seriousness. So if somebody makes a good joke or we see a good comedy, we like to laugh. So we have a relief of the tension originated from different perspectives. So that's a nice one.
Love that.
Yeah, and then I just today, if it's not a non-therapeutical book, it's a book by David Trueba, a Spanish guy. It's called in Spanish Saber Perder, and in English it's called Learning to Lose, and it's about I don't know 4 or 5 different storylines about people somehow having to deal with a loss in their life. And it's very interesting to see how people cope and the different way of coping.
Fascinating. That reminds me of another famous book, Necessary Losses, which kind of deals about the same concept that we go through losses in life. We have to learn to cope with losses because they're necessary. They're part of growing up. They're part of living and dying.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so the next 2 questions, I have a feeling there's going to be humor involved in at least one of them, maybe both of them. What is your top tip for mental health in the world today, Federico?
Yeah, how hard life is or seems to be. If you start looking for 3 funny things every day, what happened to you, or something that the butcher is saying, or the bus driver has done, or if you start looking for humor in your surrounding, it helps you to lower anxiety and to take a humorous perspective on life, and it helps coping with your own troubles.
I love that. And is that something you write down at the end of the day? So 3 funny things that happened to me today, almost like a journal.
Well, actually, I don't, but it is because if I have 3 clients a day, then I already have 3 funny situations, because I look for a way to laugh with my clients. But yeah, of course, I have some stuff in my office, books about the comic books, for example, with therapeutical jokes or whatever. So I do tend to surround me with humor.
I think I'm going to add that to my nighttime list. I already do a gratitude one, but I think I might add find something that you're grateful for and find something you found funny today, because that's a great idea.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, that's a great lead into our next question then. Of course, the favorite part of our show here. In order to get a Therapist to Millions t-shirt, tell us a fact. Tell us a fact that blows our mind, or tell us a joke that's one of a kind to win a free t-shirt.
All right. So I'm just into writing all the jokes down that I encounter while reading my articles and books about humor in psychotherapy. So I did have some jokes written down. And this is one from a book from McGee. He has written a book on humor as a survival training for a stress-out world. And one of the jokes he written down goes like this: a boy came home with a report card that included 4 Ds and 3 Fs. He said, "What do you think my problem is, Dad? Heredity or environment?"
Oh, that's brilliant.
Love it.
That's definitely winning a t-shirt. Fantastic.
Wow. Yeah.
Federico, so we're going to put the links to the podcast and your book in the show notes, but how can people get hold of you if they want to contact you?
Yeah, for the moment, if you go to terapiaprovocativa.es, you can find me, and I'm at the beginning of making an English website that will most probably be called humourandtherapy.com.
Love it.
So it will be up in a couple of weeks or months' time. But for now, terapiaprovocativa.es, and otherwise humourandtherapy.com.
Fantastic. So we'll put all those links in there, and we'll also send you your own login for our Therapist to Millions online membership, which is free for everybody. And thank you so much for appearing on the show today. And you've been absolutely wonderful guests. We really enjoyed having you on.
Thank you, and it was a pleasure and an honor. And good luck with your show. And it's a wonderful way to reach people. So a good job on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Take care.
If you enjoyed this week's episode of the Therapist to Millions podcast, may we invite you to check out our free for life Therapist to Millions online membership course for therapists and coaches who want to grow their business without trading more time for dollars. We've created the world's premier digital marketing resource exclusively for therapists, and it's yours for free for life. Just head over to therapisttomillions.com and sign up now.